Hi. So in the last video, we saw that how client makes a request to the server, and then server gives us response, and it gives an index.html file every time the client makes request for a new page, right? But now in React, like we have seen that in React, the client only makes one request to the browser, and then the client makes only one request to the server, and the server returns the entire bundled file into a file called index.html and returns it to the client, and then the client serves it on the browser, right? So that's why when we are using React application, we don't see any reloading in the app. All right, so now, from my personal opinion, if I have to break React into 4 chunks, and which will be the building block, or I'd say which holds the React together. So in order to learn React, so these are the 4 things that I need to master, right? So the first one and the second one, these are like state and props. So these are like the basic one, which I'll talk about in just a second. And then we have a component again, which is, if you don't talk about component, you don't talk about React. And then JSX, similar like. So I'll start with JSX. Like, what is a JSX? Okay, so JSX, if we don't have to go into much detail like what a JSX is, but if I tell what JSX in reality, or how JSX works in React, it's basically simple. It's simply like JavaScript plus HTML. Okay, so it's like your HTML code, but inside that you can put your JavaScript. Okay, so for example, I have to return a paragraph, but before paragraph I need to do some math calculation. All right, so I can do that because it is JavaScript plus some markup language. That's become my JSX, right? All right, okay, you don't have to fully understand it what JSX is, because we will be doing in practical. So next thing, which would be what a component is. So in React, a component is basically a function. It's just a function, but it returns a JSX, right? So function is a component is just a function which returns a JSX. And what a JSX is? JSX is nothing but a JavaScript plus HTML bundled together, where I can write some logic, and I can also render something on the screen, just like we do it in the HTML pages, right? Then what a state is. Okay, state and prop are, people get confused with state and props, but the difference is very simple. Okay, so state and prop both represent the data inside my React component. Okay, and that data is stored in, and the data is used in my JSX. All right, so my data is basically, my JavaScript inside my JSX will be using my data, which will be my state. Sorry. And again, the prop is that data. Prop is that part of my component or my React app, which is holding a data, but that data is passing from one component to other component, right? So that's the detail that you need to understand, like what a JSX is. JSX is nothing but JavaScript plus HTML, so that I can write some logics on top of my HTML, right? And then what a component is? The component is a function, is just a function. That is the definition of a component. Okay, if you go on Google, the definition of component is a function that returns some JSX, right? And then a state is a data, just a data. And I mean, there are some other details to the state, which we will talk about in the next video. And then the prop is just a data that we pass from one component to another component, right? Okay, so that being clear, we'll go into I'll basically create a React app, and then we'll talk about like folder structure, and we'll create a component. All right.